Είμαστε πολύ χαρούμενοι που έχουμε και φέτος τη Savina Neirotti. Η Savina ήταν πέρυσι μαζί μας και είχε παρουσιάσει το Torino Film Lab. Και φέτος θα μας παρουσιάσει το Biennale College Cinema. Καλημέρα.
Good morning. Is this working? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm very happy to be back again. When last year I introduced the Torino Film Lab, we then had many people from Greece applying to the different programs, and that was incredible and fascinating. And in fact, some projects were really interesting, and so they are now part of the Torino Film Lab. Last year, when I was here, the Biennale College Cinema had just been launched. The application was out. It was launched in Venice during the Venice Film Festival on the 30th of August. And the application was online, and people could apply until the 24th of October. Briefly, I would like to tell you what the Biennale College is about, but before going into the details of the project that has now gone for 1 year and is almost ready to start for the second edition, I want to put it in the context of, first of all, what the Biennale di Venezia is as an institution, because this project was sort of commissioned by the Biennale di Venezia and by the new artistic director of the Venice Film Festival. That is part of the Biennale di Venezia. So the Biennale di Venezia is the biggest cultural institution in Italy, already dating back the late 1800s. And the idea of the Biennale di Venezia is to actually create events in all the different arts. So the most famous parts of the Biennale are the Biennale Art and the Biennale Cinema, that is in fact the Venice Film Festival, that is the oldest festival in the world. But there is also Biennale Theatre, there is Biennale Music, there is Biennale Dance, and Biennale Architecture. So what Biennale does is creates these festivals, exhibitions, and these events that can be annual or biannual. And the Venice Film Festival is part of this. So it was one of the ideas of the president of the Biennale, Mr. Baratta, was to create during the year for all of its sectors a training scheme, something that could actually foster new talent and help develop new talent in the different arts. And I believe the year before, so probably in 2010 or 11, Biennale Theatre started doing some master classes for artists, and it was quite successful, and it started to become an idea that should be spread out into the different other sectors. But as you know, it was quite difficult for cinema to create something because cinema in these cases is always more expensive compared to the other arts. Well, of course, if we think of some visual arts, well, of course, it depends on the work of art you're creating. But in general, it was quite difficult to create a scheme. When Alberto Barbera was nominated to direct the Venice Film Festival, he asked me, since I was working already with him for Torino Film Lab, to design a program that could work for cinema. And I started thinking, to be really honest, I started thinking of what was missing in what I was actually doing with Torino Film Lab at the time. And I actually draw some energy from an experience I had when I visited in September 2011 the IFP market for independent American producers and directors. I saw a particular energy. I saw that I was meeting with 21, 23, 24-year-old filmmakers that were going on Kickstarter, were creating their projects with a very fresh energy, and were trying not only to design, to think of the content of their film, but were also actually trying to wrap it up and make it alive. So that was something that I noticed, and I had to make a comparison with what was happening in my country at the time, where a film that we talked about yesterday, for example, Salvo, that is a first feature of the two directors. The two directors are 43 and 45 years old, and it took 6 years to raise, I think, not even 1 million to do this first feature. And so I found that the situation was kind of really, really frustrating, and I tried to think of what could be an opportunity. And this is very important for me, that the Biennale College cinema is seen as an opportunity, more than a manifesto on the fact that cinema should be low or micro budget. Indeed, I don't believe in this. I believe in different kinds of opportunities for different kinds of projects. And so what does the Biennale College cinema do? It actually selects from all over the world teams of writers and directors that come together with a concept, an idea for a micro budget movie to be shot. So feature, let's say, can be documentary or fiction, but it has to be above 60 minutes. And so, and that has to be shot with 150,000 euros. And how this, not only the first phase of the Biennale College is actually selecting these ideas in this concept, and I will go later on into more detail on what the application system is. How do we select? In the beginning, we selected last year 15 teams from all over the world, and we brought them into Venice for a first 10-day workshop where with 16 international experts from different parts of the world, they would develop their concept together. So the teams of writer-director, or writer and director if they're two different people, and the creative producer. The idea was then, at the end of those 10 days, to actually select 3 projects that would receive the funding from the Biennale directly, so the 150,000 euros, and could go straight into a second workshop that last year was actually at the end of February, where they sort of pre-produced, after having written the script in the meantime. So it was a very, very fast process. And then go into production starting March last year. What they had to do was to present a cut to the festival director by the 15th of July, and the projects were presented in Venice during the festival in a special section dedicated to the Biennale College cinema this past September. So in a way, it was sort of a crazy idea, because there are two things that should not be usually put together, that is lack of resources and lack of time. I can already say that, in fact, there is a change for this second edition. We knew it. We knew that the time was very, very limited. But there was no way. We needed to launch the program last year, and it had to run this way. But already this year, we launched a second call already in May. So we launched 2 calls in the same sort of school year, let's say, so that we can start with the workshops of the second edition, so the next 12 projects that have been selected, 12 teams, now in October. And so this will give more time to what are the 2 most delicate phases, that are, of course, the script development and the editing phase, that certainly, I mean, was done very quickly. Now, to be really honest, I think the first edition was, we were extremely lucky. Because first of all, the 3 films were completed, and we had incredible filmmakers. Actually, the 3 projects selected were an Italian team, a team from Thailand, and a team from the US, working from completely different situations, and but they all had the same, how do you say, rules to follow. And they actually cherished this opportunity, put all their energies, and we did have not only 3 films, but we had 3 films that we can be proud of, and that in fact, from the critics, were not considered as micro-budget films, but as films that to be considered together with all the others. And I do think that this is a big success, but it also is a lucky result, because usually there is also always, and I believe in this, and I believe in this is kind of risky to say it, but I do believe in failure. And so I already knew that this project was daring in a way, and we were there also to try and see how can you do a film. The idea of the Biennale College is to research and to see, is it really possible to do a film with that amount of money in that amount of time? And what do you need to do it? To really reflect on this. So of course the stories need to think of this, and not only the stories, but the team, the way the team works, meaning the creative producer and the writer-director, need to really work together from the beginning. And this is what we saw, and make decisions. And it's really a new way of working, or something that needs to be looked closely into. And we are still doing that. That's, in fact, one of the aims of the Biennale College is also to follow up on the other, in the case of last year, 12 projects that actually have been developed in this 10-day workshop, but have not been immediately financed, because the Biennale, and this is where an important sponsor comes in, because Gucci is actually the partner that made this project possible, because he believed and he gave the financing together with the Biennale di Venezia. They put together, they raised the money to be able to sort of say to the teams, okay, you already have a hard time, you have a very low budget and you have very little time, but you do not have to raise any extra funding, and you just need to work on your idea, work on your pre-production, and try to make this happen. When I first talked about the project to some friends, they said, "Oh, this is very good, but this is crazy, and also you are not. It's impossible. There's really too little time." And they were right. I mean, we do think, to be honest, that the films, all the three films, also, that are extremely different, and we can go and see eventually a couple of trailers, and on the website that you see, that is actually describing the whole adventure of the Biennale College cinema. It is right, and in fact that's why we needed to find another 2 or 3 extra months and also it was very stressful both for us and for them. For example, when the shooting of Mary is Happy, that is the film from Thailand by Nawapol, the surname is unpronounceable. It's like, as you can see, yes, exactly. It's like long. So let's call him Nawapol. Nawapol, that had set up for a very, very difficult adventure of adapting a Twitter stream of an adolescent girl in Thailand following 400 tweets, consecutive tweets. Nawapol is a writer. He also writes novels. He observes the world around him, is very fascinated by young people. He is the director of 36. This was his second feature. And he came in the Biennale College with the idea of adapting this Twitter stream without taking out one single tweet, and to be able to construct a storyline following this girl's tweets. And he succeeded. This film, I think, you can all watch the films on Festival Scope if you are professionals. But in particular, this film, after being in Venice, is now going to be in Busan, in Tokyo, in various festivals, also in Valdivia, and so they're going to certainly travel. In this case, he succeeded. But as you can imagine, he not only wanted to pull a linear story that could actually be followed, but he also wanted the tweets to be evident. And so we had a problem of how is this not going to kill the audience? I mean, it was really something that worried everybody. And we didn't have a script, a real script for that film until the end of April, and the first day of shooting was set for the of May. So there was, in fact, a lot of anxiety. But that's where, and I speak from the point of view of the team. I'm actually working with an incredible team. As head of studies, I work with Michel Reillac and with Jane Williams, both coming from different experiences. Jane in Dubai, Michel at Arte, and of course Michel has an incredible career throughout cinema and dance and theater, and now in transmedia, but also with incredible collaborations, because the IFP, the American Association of Independent Producers, was immediately on board on the project and also brought in some, especially some producing experts that had a lot of experience in producing low budget, because that's what in America independent first features, really independent. I think they have a situation that is even more difficult than all of our situations in Europe. They really do not have any funding to access, and so they have to be inventive and shoot a first film, normally with even below $100,000. And also, of course, I relied on the team that I work with in Torino Film Lab, especially on script development, to be able to help as much as possible throughout the process, the projects. I think what I could go a little bit more in detail of what the application process is and tell you when the next deadline will be. But also what I would like to say is that from the beginning we tried to set up a website that could tell you the story of all the different projects and also the story of the process. So there is a lot of information online on the website that you see up there. And we are also, of course, on Facebook. There you can see the different informations, both on the process of making the film, but also the reviews, the critics, what has happened after Venice when these films were shown. We actually, just to give you a nice detail, there was a group, two Italian critics that decided to constantly tweet the review while seeing the film Mary is Happy. So they wanted to play the game. I said, okay, this is, and so there are some also interesting experiments. I start again from the beginning to that August when we launched the call. We also had very little time. We had to close the call by the 24th of October. So the call was up for 6 weeks. It was launched in Venice and it was open to the rest of the world. We had two decisions to make. Are we going to make a difficult application or are we going to make an easy application? And we went for the difficult application, not in terms of difficult, what does difficult mean? But of course, it was an application you really had to think of, and you really had to put a lot of effort in preparing it. The process is all online, so like Roberto yesterday said, a paperless process. And what the teams had to submit was actually a 10-page concept or treatment or idea, depending on the nature of the project. If it was a transmedia, it would have been a concept. If it was a fiction film, it would have been a treatment. If it was a documentary, it would have been a project description of maximum 10 page. Of course, a synopsis. Of course, all the information on the director and the producer. But in addition, we watched 2 examples of previous work. We asked for a video presentation where we could listen to the team explaining the concept and the idea. We needed a draft budget and a draft casting idea. And in this sense, of course, it's very difficult to budget a concept. But since we knew that the budget had to be 150 euros, what we wanted to see was, okay, how do you think? We were asking the team in a way, how do you think that this idea that you are presenting to us could be made with that budget? It was, in fact, more to make the team aware of their own thoughts and ideas more than what actually then became the actual budget of the project, because the project had to be still developed. the application was totally online because, of course, we had readers from all over the world. So I tried to put together a team that had people from really all, well, not all nationalities, because they were in the end 10, but different nationalities, so that they could read and evaluate each single application. I was expecting a number around 100 applications or something like that, and in fact we were surprised by more than 400 applications. The first call was 430 applications, and that we had to process in less than a month. So that was when, thank God, the team of experts could provide also expert readers that could evaluate. To be in the end, so we could only select 3% of the projects that came in, and that's why we needed we really needed that every application that came to the final round, to the sort of short list that then the Venice Film Festival director Alberto Barbera would also look at. Well, we needed at least 4 people reading each application when going to the final stages, because we were judging ideas, teams. It was very risky. What I believe, not risky also in a positive sense. In this space, we were certainly looking for innovative ideas and also people that were taking risks themselves. But one thing that we didn't want was, and this is also what we evaluated during the first 10 days of the workshop, that was very important, it was to watch the teams work together. That was also a very important decision to then decide who would be who would be in the team of 3 that would actually receive the money. How was the producer and how were the director communicating? How much were they on the same page? Because having no time, it was absolutely important that the project was felt and was involving really the team. That was something. We tried already in the application selection process to look at that, to understand how the people had been working together, and we actually asked also this. Another thing that we asked in the application was to design an engagement plan, an audience engagement plan. We're talking about documents of about 1 page, but as you know, to write these documents, sometimes it's much more difficult than to go and write a first draft out of, it's very, to be concentrated in a little amount of space and really say the things that matter. And so in the sense of the audience engagement plan meant, how do you think, for example, that this film how are you going to draw attention on this film, and how are you going to look for an audience already? How do you think that this film is going to be perceived? And for example, all the 3 films that were then produced had very, very interesting ideas and are actually implementing them at the moment. For example, the story of Mary is Happy, before its official release in Thailand, that will happen in December, they will already have a book. They have contacted the girl. In the beginning, the girl didn't know that she was followed. Of course, for example, the Biennale requested that the girl was informed, because what Nawapol is actually very active and follows these people on Twitter that he is attracted to, in the beginning, they didn't want to say to the girl that this was going to become a film, but of course they were obliged to, and she reacted in a very funny and interesting way, as she tweets, and so, and then decided to write the book of this experience. So the application, to go back, remained the same also for the 2nd edition that was launched only 6 months after. And again, we then received almost 300 applications for the 2nd edition after 6 months. So if we look at what happened in 1 year, it was almost 700 applications from all over the world, 77 countries. This was the reaction to the call. and that certainly means something, also because the Biennale di Venezia is not known for necessarily today following, the film festival is not particularly known for following the young talents, so it was not something so obvious for us to receive that number of applications. Maybe I should talk a little bit about the 3 films if you want. Well, you can find, I just want to show you on the website. How do I go down here? Maybe. Yes, so you can find not only all the reviews and articles, but also we did interview the filmmakers after and asked them honestly to tell us how was the experience. And how was the experience, what was extremely difficult. I mean, this is really a project where we need to continuously correct ourselves and try to make it better. And in fact, of course, the issue of time was very fundamental. But what was interesting was what the producer of the Thai film said, that was, you know, and this was a little bit like, I think someone said yesterday, I don't remember who, about the fact that sometimes ideas have a sort of a data di scadenza. Okay, wait a minute, I'm trying to translate from it. An end date. So there is a moment when the fresh idea sort of expires and you need to keep the momentum. So the producer of Mary is Happy said, I loved the time constraint, having to push to the limit, because I thought that, for example, for this kind of project, that was what we needed. So there were also admirers of this absurd time frame that we had imposed. What is also...
Just a question, how did you handle, or did it come up, or how would you handle the situation that somebody says, okay, you select them and they're one of the last 3 and they manage to get another 50, 100, 150,000 for somewhere else. So are they out because it's not the same? Are they not allowed to?
They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to. So it's really a restriction only to use that money, but in terms of services and deals they can do?
They can have a 15% in kind because, and as you all the producers in the room will know, this is easy to cheat. I mean, if you want to have in kind and not show it in the budget. But again, there's got to be a little bit of trust, and also there's not so much time really to do many tricks. So of course they were allowed 15% of in kind. They could, so in some time they could do that. They are absolutely allowed. They retain all the rights. They keep all the rights. So Biennale does not have the rights for their films. Biennale just shows the films in Venice as a world premiere. But from then on, the film is of the filmmakers. Of course, Biennale wants to know where the film goes, and Gucci also, so there are some obligations towards Gucci, but are all only of the kind of keeping them informed and letting Gucci, for example, use the films in some particular occasions, if that's his. But for the rest, and also for distribution, they are then allowed to raise the money they need. And we also discuss distribution all through the process, so that they can make decisions and also eventually raise money. For example, I am sure that again Aditya in Thailand for the Thailand premiere has found extra money. So the idea was that the production budget should be that, and they actually sign a very big contract with Biennale, saying that of course they should finish the film in time, and that they are not going to raise extra funding.
And how did you handle the fees, director's fee, producer's fee? Was it all referrals, hoping that they're going to get it back once the film is sold?
Well, we had a production, head of production following the budget also. While they were going into production and having constant updates, it was different everybody was paid on all budget, but I think in the end, so for the Italian film, I'm sure also the director and the producer were paid, but, well, minimum fees, as you can imagine. I think they were paid also in Mary is Happy. I think in the case of the American film, they did not put their cost in the budget. So it was left a little bit to them. What of course we had to do, and especially being in Italy, we had to make sure that all the taxes were paid. And that made it very difficult for the Italian team. The actual Italian team shot with much less money than all the rest because of the minimum wages and the fact that there is no particular help given to who is shooting a micro budget. So what they all did, everybody shot between 18 and 20 days. In the case of Memphis, that is the American film, and in the case of Yuri Esposito, that is the Italian film, the shooting was consecutive. In the case of Mary is Happy, they did the most incredible things. They actually had to shoot a scene in Paris, and so they went in Paris in March, so they did 2 or 3 days of shooting there, 10 consecutive days of shooting at the end of May, and another 3 or 4 days end of June, and something even after we saw the first cut by the 15th of July. We ended up with 3 films that I think Yuri Esposito is around 72 minutes, Memphis something around 75, and Mary is Happy is 120, so it's a 2-hour film. I would really love people to see them of course, with a critical eye, to see how different they are. We are talking about 3 complete different, not only stories, but styles. You could not, if they didn't have the Biennale College label right in the front, I don't think you could imagine that they came out from the same place. The Italian film that actually was incredibly appreciated by the American critics. We were on a panel with Richard Corliss from Times, Mick LaSalle from San Francisco Chronicle, and The Village Voice, and they just loved Yuri Esposito. And the reason I think, and actually they went off to say that it was one of the 5 best films in Venice. Let's put all of this in bracket, but it is interesting to see why. And they said that Tom Hanks should buy the remake rights of Yuri Esposito. What was the particular idea behind the Italian film? It was a high concept. It was the idea of what happens to a man that is slow. The only thing he is incredibly slow. He does everything, but incredibly slow. What happens to him when he knows that he's becoming a father and decides that he wants to become fast? So it is the journey of a man that starts from slow, goes through this ideal tentative of becoming fast, and in a way losing a lot of the advantages that he had in being slow, and first of all, his girlfriend. And then, of course, there is the happy ending of going back to being slow and accepting oneself. So that is the high concept of the Italian movie, Yuri Esposito, an incredible actor that is, for 70 minutes, you only see him. And of course, when we were selecting, we thought, oh my God, how are we going to see this person go slowly for 70 minutes? This is going to kill the audience again, it's like, but the scriptwriter, this was also a project with a scriptwriter, a director, and convinced us that he was going to make this interesting, and he did. So this is the Italian film. Memphis, the American film, completely different. Second feature, actually following the life of a real artist, and through the city of Memphis, in a way trying to, again, we're talking about identity, but in the case of Yuri Esposito, it's quite clear what the identity crisis is. In the case of Memphis, it is an artist that has an incredible voice and cannot find the inspiration to sing again. And so everybody's waiting for him to sing, and he goes into almost madness. The style is completely different. It's more, there's non-actors. The city of Memphis is one of the protagonists. There is no particular narrative that you are following, and the visuals are terrific. So a completely different atmosphere and kind of feel. And then we go to this concept that I described before of adapting a Twitter stream. So we have the tweets on the screen, and we see these scenes following each tweet. And there is a way that the screenwriter found, and that is also the director, of sometimes mixing the dialogue in the scene with the tweet. So there are continuous referrals, and in the beginning you have to get into the system, but then you actually are able to have an idea of what it means to be in your late adolescence today in Thailand, but I must say not only, I think also in the rest of the world. And so this is, maybe we can see if one of the trailers, for example, we don't have the trailer of Mary is Happy, but we have the one of Yuri Esposito and the one of Memphis, so maybe I'll go look for them. It's in August, I think, yeah. No, it was, they were screened outside. Well, it would be quite difficult to put them into. Venice produced them, so it wouldn't be right to put them in Orizzonti competing. And so, but they were screened actually the first weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 2:30 in Sala Perla. That was really so. In fact, there was it's a room of 500 seats. They were screened 3 times during the festival, and they were full. There's the interviews, as you see. I'm going to try and look for. Okay, here. Oh yeah. Okay. Let's look at this one and then the other one. Oh no, this is Memphis, and then we'll see Yuri. Sorry, I got this one first. It's not very high quality, so it's online. Volume, wait. It was working. No, maybe we have to do something here. Maybe here.
I be wondering if they trying to set me up, get rid of me or what, but you know, it's gonna be hard. They've been knocking little chunks out of me, but I ain't gonna lay down. You know, I'm not laying down with nothing in the world until tell the man upstairs call me, you know? Yeah. True love is an illusion. True love is an illusion.
You believe in magic? What you believe in?
I know there's a time
You ever dream you was on camera?
when one day she'll come running back. She'll come running by.
So you want to see the slowest man on earth? The remake of, yeah.
Quando Yuri è nato sembrava normale, ma
Oh,
poi
it's in
ogni
Italian.
giorno diventava lento, sempre più lento. Nessuno capiva cosa avesse, nessuna indagine effettuata aveva dato risultati soddisfacenti.
Noi. Sì. Noi tre.
È una terapia sperimentale, ci sono dei rischi, lo sai.
Sì. Sono veloce. Sono Yuri Esposito, cazzo! Ciao, Gio.
Io non ti ho mai chiesto di essere diverso.
Yuri, ma non ti sembra che stai esagerando?
Dovresti almeno credere in te stesso.
I think I said everything.
Ένα λεπτάκι λίγο να σπίρω το μικρόφωνο.
How did he manage to make the kid? He was so slow.
No, it's the actor doing it.
Yes, no, I mean, if you're so slow, do you have any footage of him copulating in order to... It should be included.
There is a scene, in fact.
I believe his motive should be... Okay, I am a filmmaker and I have a vivid imagination myself, but it is... We can build on that. Okay, thank you.
We'll talk with the filmmakers.
Is there an age limit for the filmmakers to participate to an application? Age, regarding age?
No.
And
No, the
work?
limit is that you need to be doing your first or second feature, and you need to be a team. The producer can be experienced, and you need to have some previous work. The producer actually needs to have produced at least 3 shorts or a documentary, I mean, to have some experience, but there is no age limit.
Okay, and is there a fee for
No.
the application?
No, you need to pay the travels to Venice in the case of the first workshop, and then it's all covered. And if you then are selected, everything is paid for the next 2 workshops. There is one thing maybe that I can tell you what changed from the first to the second edition. In the first edition, we had 2 10-day workshops. very close from one another. And actually, the three films were actually chosen after the final presentation in Venice. Of course, we knew because we were working with them for 10 days. So there was an actual selection, but the director only saw the presentation in Venice. This time we are actually going to have a first long workshop in October, then a second script development workshop of 4 days in the beginning of December, and a final 5-day workshop focusing on all pre-production aspects in the middle of January. So we actually are going to have 3 workshops. The 2 last ones are shorter. And also, what is going to happen is that after the first workshop, the filmmakers will have 1 month to write the first draft, and will hand in by the 15th of November the first draft. And only at that moment, after having received the 12 drafts, we will actually select the 3 that will come back in Venice. And then another change we made is that, of course, we had an editor, an incredible Mary Stephens. She was following the whole process. She was seeing some rushes, but this time she will follow the editing process even more closely, and we will ask for a first cut probably around mid-June, and so that we have even more time to comment on the editing, and maybe it's really a college. This is the spirit of it, and to get the best out of what we have.
Were there any documentary films in the applications or
Yes.
Short list?
Yes, there were. Actually, there were. Then the fact that still they didn't make the final cut. But of course, well, the documentaries, of course, have to be creative documentaries with a strong narrative. But the border between documentary and fiction now, I think, is quite blurring. And if you really, now, we can't say this of Memphis, but we're really talking about, this is a project that you would say...
Like docu-fiction.
In a way, yes.
Okay. And it's the same pattern, writer, director, and producer.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, you can bring to Venice, if it's a project that needs other people involved, you can bring them to Venice at the first workshop. Of course, then the costs of the third person, fourth person would have to be covered by the team. But there is that possibility, because it's really sort of concept development in those 10 days. And there is, if you want to know a little bit how we're going to be working, actually, this team, these 12 are divided into groups of 4, and each 4 have attached a producer consultant, a script consultant, and a group leader working closely through the 10 days. And then we have different experts coming and going into the groups. And the sessions are anything from bigger plenaries to one-to-ones to teams with the consultant. We also separate the teams sometimes, so the director goes with the group leader and the producer goes with the producer consultant. So there's a lot of different combinations of meetings, and so it's very, 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 very intense. We are on this little island that was actually an asylum for the insane. That is between Venice, the Venice San Marco, and the Lido. So there's this little island that is called San Servolo, that is now actually, it's a beautiful place. But you have to imagine what happened last year when everybody arrived on the 6th of January in the middle of the Venice fog. This means you cannot see your feet, okay? In this deserted island, because they had just reopened after Christmas. And actually, me and Jane arrived first the day before, and it was only us, and the heating went in block. I mean, the place is wonderful. You should go in the summer. It's really great. But the situation was, there was only the 2 of us. It was freezing cold. They had just reopened. We couldn't see our feet. it felt like The Shining. But then everybody started to arrive, and we had a great time. We were isolated on San Servolo the whole day, and then, of course, in the evenings we would go into Venice. And Venice in January is fantastic. There's just nobody around, so it's also, you can really get to enjoy it.
The script development is in English, and the workshop is
Everything
only
is in, yes.
Everything.
Everything is in English, yes. And the application has to be submitted in English. And the next application will be launched around the beginning of May 2014.
If the narration of the scenario is in another language, it still has to be translated in English and worked. The scenario has to be worked in English.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
and actually,
it can be shot in another language.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course, yes.
Yeah.
You shoot where you want, in the language you want. It's your film. Yes, but there's one piece of advice. I really believe that this scheme is, you should know the scheme first and then think of a project, or adapting something, like cutting the budget of something that should be shot on a bigger budget is absolutely wrong, and would really not make sense. Would not make sense. I think there is enough time knowing about this to really try and think something that is appropriate, that can give the best results with this scheme, because otherwise you ruin you ruin a good story. If you have a good story that should be shot for much more, it's really stupid. And again, then there is the visibility in Venice, so you don't really want to do something just to do it, you know. So I recommend that people will think something specific and will play the game.
If the script is in more advanced stage than a treatment, is it okay? Is it a problem? Is it an advantage, a handicap, or what? Or should be submitted in a treatment?
Yes.
It should be submitted as a treatment?
Absolutely,
okay,
yes.
Thank you.
You know, I know from talking to you and to Michelle, I know about the project or the Biennale College, and I was always very skeptical about it because we talked about it also because tying a team of a producer and a director for almost a year, I mean, it's 8 months, maybe 9 months, and work on a film where they would actually not make money, during the process at least, means that they have to sustain whatever they're doing. And, but at the same time, it's so tempting because if I get in, my film will be shown in Biennale. And I don't really want to comment on it because I can also see it's a great chance to do something particularly developed for the format, which I think is the key to it in a way. But can you maybe tell us a little about the experiences of the producers and directors during the time, how they felt and how they coped with to work within that framework? That would interest me.
I can tell you. I don't know if we were lucky in this first edition. Anyway, there are the comments. You can find them because everybody said there was too little time, and you can read it on the website. But what came out most was the energy, the enthusiasm, and in a way, the fact that, yes, last year actually for 7 months, they were doing that. But for example, the producer from Thailand was doing also other stuff at the same time. I don't know how he did it. He was working probably 24 hours, 7. So he was doing other things. The producer, the Italian producer, said it was a lifetime change for him, an opportunity. You have to compare it, of course, to what would have happened instead in their lives. And so, and for the Americans, it was kind of normal. They actually, Tim had shot Pavilion, his first feature, with $60,000. And so for them, it was an increase. It was a step up. It was also a huge amount of money for Aditya and Nawapol. It was very tough for the Italians, but really, I mean, let's be serious. It is almost impossible to do a first feature film in Italy at today.
What about the shortlisted films that were not selected? Out of 20, 3 were shot. What happened to the other ones? Were any of them shot? Thank you.
Well, there is some nice stories here to say, okay, so what we commit to is to help them finance their films in some other ways, not help them, and so give them opportunities. So, for example, 3 of the films will be coming at Torino Film Lab meeting event where they'll be able to meet producers. 3 films were now at IFP New York, where the market in September, where again they are meeting producers. Some projects will also be going not at the market in Dubai, but one is actually entered one of the development programs to continue development. Because one thing that I forgot to say is that the films that were selected were not necessarily, I believe in all the 15 projects of last year. In some cases, what we found out during the process was that that film would have been damaged with such a low budget, so it didn't make sense. They needed a bigger budget. And this is the case of one of the films that is going very fast, that is actually Tramontane, a Lebanese film that actually then got funding from the Doha Film Institute. And then the producer was selected for the Sundance Creative Producer Lab. So they are hoping, I think, to shoot in 2014. And so, of course, these films that have been developed initially with the college are now going and trying to raise their finance as any other film would do. And in some cases, the budget for example, I think the budget of Tramontane has become 250. It's still a very low budget, and then there is only one case where the filmmaker said that he put the project on hold because he was not convinced after having developed it of what he wanted to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.